Hello, I'm Sam Hollis. Today I'm going to tell you about dynamic websites, or how your website will change size for different screens. So I'm going to take you through a couple of different websites we've built and show you how dynamic sizing works. So you can see here one of the websites we've built for a company here called Adds Up Accounting. This now is on the full width of my screen. But not everybody has a monitor the same size as me. Some people will look at this website on a phone, some people will look on a tablet, some people will look on a laptop that maybe has a much narrower screen than this, maybe has a wide screen. So everybody will see things slightly differently. So what we have to do with dynamic websites is make the websites work as well as they can for everybody. So if you see now, if I shrink the size of this window to maybe how somebody will see it on a laptop, the website now looks a little bit different to how somebody saw it on a full large monitor, and it gets down to laptop size and things have changed. And again, if we shrink it down again towards a small laptop, it looks different again. And if we shrink it down more towards tablet size, it looks different again, and we can see things are changing in the way they're lined up. And if we go down more towards mobile size, it can get really small down there. So we can see the website can look quite different at different sizes. So we can see the menus changing if we look at the top. So if we watch it now and look at the menu at the top, you can see how that is changing as it goes across. You can see the text is changing, and we can see if we go further down that the columns here will also change. Let me show you that. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through all of those and how this works. But the idea is this is designed to make your website look as good as possible on every single device there is, which means there needs to be some flexibility because everybody's device is different. Everybody's laptop, everybody's tablet, everybody's phone, everybody's desktop monitor are all different sizes, and your website has to look good on all of them. The old-fashioned approach was everything sat narrow in the middle and that solved it, but that doesn't work anymore, not with full width and things. So we're going to go through a bit in detail. So I'm going to look at the menu and how your menu might change as the screen size changes. So you can see now all the items are side by side. And what a client will say to me is, can you guarantee that my items will be side by side? None will ever be underneath. And the answer really is no, that's not very simple for us to do, because as people's screens get smaller, at some stage, like here, one of the items has to wrap underneath, because somebody might have a particularly narrow laptop. And that might be their screen size, or they might have two windows open, so they've got another one here, and this is how they're looking at it. But as it gets smaller, so it's possible with the menu starts full width, it then will start to wrap. And then as it gets smaller, it will eventually, if we go back up to the top, turn to what we call a burger menu with the three lines with a bun either side and a burger in the middle. It will turn into what we call a burger menu, which is what you traditionally see on a tablet or what you see on a phone, and then you get the normal way that works. So we can move back out, and you've got the normal menu again. Text also changes. So I'm going to look at this text in particular because lots of people talk about text and photos. So what clients will often ask me is, can you make this text finish at the bottom of this photo? And my answer is usually no, because things change. So if we watch at how this, as the screen size changes, the size of the photo is changing, and the text is limited in size. So as we make the screen narrower, the text will get longer because it's got less space to fit on, and as we move the screen out, the text takes up less space here. So you can see at a certain height, the text about there, the text and the photos line up perfectly, but that's only one person's screen size. Somebody with a wider screen size won't see them lined up because the text has moved up because it's got more space. Or somebody with a narrower screen size, again, won't see them lined up because the text is now quite narrow, so it needs more space to go down to fit the same amount of text in, and the picture's shrunk. So because the amount of space the text has and the size of the picture changes, we can't just make them always line up, because as I keep saying, we have to make sure this website can work on every single screen size for you. I would also like to look a little bit at columns. So here we've got a 3-column layout. So with a wide menu, that stays 3 columns. Wide screen, as we move it in the screen, it stays 3 columns. Eventually the columns will start to shrink as the screen gets smaller, and then at some stage the columns will, once they get too narrow, collapse. So actually they go one under the next, because there's a certain width. 3 columns would get so narrow that they would be really hard to read and not look very good. So certainly on phones you don't normally get columns, they normally collapse down like that. So column layouts will stay and then can collapse at certain points. With 4 columns it can be, sometimes there's 2 collapsing points, so they can go from 4 down to 2 down to 1. It depends how the website's set up. But again, the number of columns and the way they look will vary depending on the size of screen somebody is looking at. So remember, not everybody has the same screen size as you. That's really important. I want to look at a different website now, one we've also built, and look at full width images. So we've got here a full width image. I'll make this as big as I can on my screen. We've got a full width image. Please have a look and see how much you can see above the boats, is sort of how much we can see above the roof of that boat, how far ahead of the front of the boat we can see, and what we see at the back. So we've got that little post. Now as I move the screen in and make it narrower, what we can see changes. So what we can see is we can see more above and below of the boat, but less from side to side, because the image has changed shape. So this image has been cropped. We can't see the full image because the full image is a fixed size, and this has to keep changing. So we can now see less of each end of the boat, but we can see more of the top and bottom. And as we keep going, that will happen more and more. We can see now, suddenly you can see much higher up in the boat. It's a much taller picture now, but we can't see as much at either end. We certainly can't see that post that was there, and we've got less see there. And it will keep changing again as the website size changes. So with big full width images, they have to be able to crop automatically. That means bits at the sides will be lost, bits at the top and bottom will be lost on different screen sizes. That can make it challenging depending on the image. An image like this can cope with that, and we would pick an image like this. But some images have important information at the edges or might have text in, and so that important information or text could be lost with dynamic screen sizing, because the image needs to adjust for the size of the screen. You can see now it's almost like it's quite zoomed in because of the way the website's had to work, because now it's cropping a narrow section of the image that's wide, while when we move it in, it's got a much taller section of image. So the full width image will change depending on how wide the screen is that you're looking at it with. So the last thing I wanted to just look at here was this button here. So we've got the button here, and when we've got a wideish screen, you've got a nice wide image, you've got some text here that's a little bit narrower, and then a button that's narrower still, and that's a nice layout. But that will change the ratios as the screen gets smaller. This text will get smaller and the image gets smaller, but the button actually stays about the same. So what will start to happen as we get narrower is that the text and the image and the button all start to come together eventually. There's always be a gap here either side of the button, but it's now much more all in line while we're on sort of mobile phone width here. Let me go back up, as opposed to when we are much wider here, when you've got that nice image, then a space, then the text, then the button, and everything like this will change. Your layout will change as the screen size changes. So I hope that helps. I hope that has given you a little introduction to dynamic websites and explanation why your website does not look the same for everybody. It won't look the same as your phone on your desktop and your laptop, and somebody else will have a different size laptop and someone else will have a different size phone, and it will look different on all of them. But the key is it looks as good as it can do on all of them. The alignment might not be the same, the ratios of the sizes might not be the same, but it looks as good as it can do on all of the different devices. I'm Sam Hollis from Sam Hollis Web Design. I hope that helps you with dynamic websites.